The life of a sugar glider. Nature's pouch potato. If you thought human biology was complicated, wait until you meet the sugar glider, also known as Petaurus breviceps. Their life cycle doesn't start with a bundle of joy delivered by a stork. It starts with a biological magic trick that defies both logic and most people's comfort levels. This starts with the courtship, or the bald spot romance. Before the baby, known as a joey, appears, we have the courtship. Male sugar gliders are the only animals on Earth that try to pick up a date by showing off their receding hairline. You see, males have a scent gland right on the top of their heads. By the time they hit maturity, they look like a tiny, furry middle manager named Dave. They use this bald spot to rub their scent on everything. The female, the trees, the cage, your favorite hoodie. It's their way of saying, this is mine, that is mine, and you're definitely mine. Once the female agrees to this arrangement, likely because Dave has found a particularly juicy mealworm, the process begins. Here is where things get weird. The pregnancy of a sugar glider lasts about 15 to 17 days. That's it. For context, it takes longer than that to get a package delivered from overseas. Because the gestation is so short, the joey is born in a state that can only be described as unfinished. When the joey is born, it is roughly the size of a grain of rice. It is pink, hairless, and looks more like a jelly bean with legs than a majestic gliding mammal. In a feat of incredible strength, this tiny jelly bean has to climb from the birth canal, through the mother's fur, and into the pouch. If the mother sneezes, it's a disaster. But once it hitches a ride into the pouch palace, it locks onto a teat, which then swells inside its mouth to keep it anchored. It's basically the biological version of being plugged into a charger. But how about living the beginnings of your life in an internal studio apartment for the next 70 to 74 days? The joey is in pouch. IP. At this stage, the mother looks like she swallowed a very lumpy, hacky sack. The joey isn't doing much except drinking milk and growing. To the outside observer, the mother just looks slightly more irritable than usual, likely because she has one or two tiny roommates constantly kicking her in the kidneys from the inside. As a viewer, you won't see the joey during this phase. If you try to peek, you'll just get a face full of crab barking, the signature sound of a sugar glider that is about 10% animal and 90% chainsaw. Around the 2-month mark, the pouch starts to get crowded. You'll start to see what breeders call pouch pops. This is when a tiny tail or a miniature foot accidentally pokes out of the pouch opening while the mother is sleeping. It looks like the mother has grown an extra limb, or perhaps she's just poorly packed her luggage. Eventually, the joey becomes too big for the studio apartment. It's time for the official birth, the day they finally detach and crawl out to see the world. But don't get excited, they aren't ready to glide. They're just ready to cling to their mother's back like a very expensive, very demanding backpack. Welcome to the OP stage. In the sugar glider world, this stands for out of pouch, though for the parents it probably stands for overwhelming panic. Around day 70 to 74, the joey finally realizes it is no longer the size of a jelly bean and that the pouch has become a very cramped sauna. It detaches from the milk charger and emerges into the world, looking like a damp, bug-eyed version of a lint ball. Some might call this bug-eyed lint ball the world's most demanding backpack. At this stage, the joey's primary survival strategy is clinging for dear life. It hits a ride on the mother's or father's back, digging its tiny, needle-sharp claws into their fur. For the next few weeks, the mother sugar glider is essentially a marsupial Uber. She has to leap, climb, and forage, while carrying one or two hitchhikers who have zero regard for aerodynamics or her personal space. The joeys are still incredibly dependent. They can't regulate their own body temperature yet, so if they aren't on a parent, they are huddled in a cuddle pile in the nest. If a joey falls off the mom bus, it lets out a piercing, rhythmic hiss chirp that sounds like a tiny tea kettle going off. This is the universal glider signal for, I have been misplaced and I would like to speak to a manager immediately. Now time for the milk drunk and the face wash. While they are out of the pouch, the joeys are still strictly on a liquid diet. A milk drunk joey is one of the funniest sights in nature. They will finish nursing, detach with a visible sigh of relief, and fall fast asleep on their backs with their limbs splayed out, looking like they just finished a 3-day binge at an all-you-can-eat buffet. This is also when the parents begin the grooming Olympics. Sugar gliders are obsessed with hygiene, mostly because if they smell like fruit, a predator might try to eat them, and if they smell like Dave, nobody wants to hang out with them. The parents will hold the joey down with their tiny hands and lick them clean from head to toe. The joey usually reacts to this the way a human toddler reacts to a wet washcloth to the face, with pure, unadulterated drama. Around 10 to 14 days after coming out of the pouch, the joey's eyes finally snap open. Up until now, they've been navigating by smell and the general vibration of the mom bus. Now they can see the world, and the world is terrifyingly large. Initially, their vision is about as clear as a foggy window, but those giant black orbs, which make up about 50% of their face, rapidly adjust to low-light conditions. They start to look around and realize that the things their parents are eating, like giant squirming mealworms, look way more interesting than milk. This curiosity marks the beginning of the end for their childhood. One of the most charming behaviors seen at this stage is the tail braid. When the joeys are sleeping in the nest with the colony, they will often intertwine their tails with their siblings or parents. It's a biological safety rope. Even in their sleep, they are making sure that nobody leaves the huddle without taking everyone else with them. They are officially part of the crab barking syndicate, and they are ready to start testing their own legs, even if those legs currently move with the coordination of a newborn giraffe on ice. By the time the joey is about 3 to 4 months old, they have officially reached the adolescent stage. They are no longer content being luggage. They want to be the driver. Their fur is sleek, their tails are fluffy, and most importantly, their patagium, that stretchy skin membrane that runs from their wrists to their ankles, is ready for action. Imagine waking up one day and realizing you are wearing a permanent, fur-lined base jumpsuit. That is the life of a juvenile sugar glider. At this age, they begin to stretch. You'll see them standing on the edge of a branch, extending their arms like they're trying to hug the entire forest, testing the tension of their gliding membrane. They look like tiny, furry Batman impersonators. But while an adult glider can soar over 150 feet in a single leap, a juvenile has the spatial awareness of a bowling ball. They see a target, they calculate the distance, they leap with total confidence. And then they realize they forgot to account for wind, gravity, or the fact that they are essentially a kite made of ham. The first few glides are less majestic flight and more panicked flapping. Because they haven't mastered the use of their tail as a rudder, they tend to spin. A lot. Watching a teenage sugar glider try to land is like watching a slice of buttered toast fall off a table. You know it's going to hit the floor, you just don't know which side will land first. They often overshoot their mark and end up starfishing against a tree trunk with a soft thwack sound. They then scramble up the bark with an embarrassed look on their face, hoping none of the cool adult gliders saw them. This is the learning curve phase, where they realize that being a glider involves a lot of walking back up to where you just fell from. This is also the weaning phase. The joey is transitioning from milk to the sugar part of their name, nectar, sap, and fruit. They are also discovering the glider part includes protein in the form of bugs. Sugar gliders are notoriously picky eaters. A juvenile will pick up a piece of fruit, lick it once, decide it's so last season, and toss it onto the floor with a look of pure disdain. However, if they see their parents eating something, they will immediately try to steal it directly out of their mouths. This leads to the first real crab barks. No, not actual crabs barking. It's a little more expressive. If you've never heard a sugar glider crab, it sounds like a small, angry lawnmower being choked. Juveniles use this sound to tell their siblings to back off my mealworm. It's a hilarious contrast, this tiny, adorable creature with big Disney eyes, making a sound that belongs in an exorcism movie. As they become more mobile, the juveniles have to learn the rules of the colony. Sugar gliders are intensely social. They live in groups of up to 7 adults and their offspring. The teenagers have to learn that you can't just jump on the head male's face whenever you feel like it. They spend their nights wrestling, chasing each other through the canopy, and practicing their grooming circles. This isn't just play, it's a social hierarchy test. They are learning who's the boss, who is the best at finding the sweet acacia sap, and who is most likely to share their huddle when the sun comes up. They are preparing for adulthood, even if they still occasionally trip over their own tails during a landing. But each trip and rip only prepares these night stalkers for the golden years, where they become the bosses of the colony, master the scent marking game, and spend their nights being the loudest 5-ounce creatures on the planet. By the age of 1 year, the sugar glider has officially traded in its intern status for a permanent position in the colony. They have reached full size, about the length of a banana, but significantly more opinionated. At this stage, the life cycle shifts from trying not to die to living your best, loudest life. As we discussed, the adult male finally develops his diamond of authority, the bald scent gland on his head. He also has a scent gland on his chest. An adult male's daily, or rather nightly, to-do list is 90% rubbing his head on things. He rubs his head on his mate, his children, his favorite branch, and your hand. He is basically a walking ink stamp that smells like a mix of musk and fermented fruit. The females aren't off the hook either. They have their own scent markers to identify their specific group. This is the social glue phase. Every member of the colony must smell like the same communal perfume. If a stranger glider wanders in smelling like a different forest, the colony reacts like a group of angry bouncers at an exclusive club. An adult sugar glider is a marvel of biological engineering. Those failed leaps from adolescence are a distant memory. An adult can steer in mid-air by curving their cape and using their long, bushy tail as a rudder. They can make 90-degree turns to avoid an owl or a particularly sturdy oak tree. They have also mastered the landing stick. Instead of the starfish splat, they now land with all 4 feet simultaneously, instantly ready to scurrying up the tree. They have become the ultimate nocturnal ninjas, if ninjas were incredibly fuzzy and occasionally got stuck in window curtains. In the wild, life is a constant game of dodge the predator. Wild gliders usually live about 5 to 7 years. However, in a domestic setting with a balanced diet and no owls, they can reach the ripe old age of 12 to 15 years. As they enter their golden years, sugar gliders become the grumpy elders, or the OGs of the colony. A 10-year-old glider has seen it all. They know exactly which pouch corner is the warmest. Senior gliders might slow down a bit, their glides might be shorter, and their crabbing might be a bit raspier, but they remain the social heart of the group. The life cycle of the sugar glider is a testament to the work hard, play hard philosophy. They start as a grain of rice, survive a perilous climb into a pouch, ride a mom bus, survive gravity's learning curve, and eventually become the rulers of their own tiny, high-altitude kingdoms. They remind us that you don't need to be big to be formidable. You just need a supportive colony, a stretchy suit of skin, and the confidence to jump into the dark, trusting that your tail will lead the way. As the sun rises and our adult glider curls back into a cuddle pile for a well-earned nap, the next generation is already stirring in a pouch nearby, ready to start the chaos all over again. Thank you for watching Animal Ascension. We really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to polish up on your sugar glider knowledge. These marsupials are a protective species in Australia and need all the love they can get in the ever-so-changing environment they live in. If you're pro glider, hit that like and subscribe button and glide to the next video, and try not to trip over your tail, Tony.